Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk ETC. Today, for my guest, I have David Yakobovitch, and he's a principal data scientist at Galvanize and the host of the HumAIn podcast, which is a data science and AI podcast. And we know we've heard lots about machine learning and AI in the news. You may or may not know what the details are, how it's related to blockchain technology, if it is at all. So I thought David would be a great guest to have on the show to discuss that and more. So welcome, David.
Thanks so much for having me, Christian. Really appreciate it.
And I may have pronounced your last name incorrectly. Can you just say it one more time?
Oh, you did just fine, but it's
okay.
Yakobovitch.
Okay, good. So why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Give a little bit of your background to start us out.
Sure, absolutely. I appreciate that. So I was in Florida for many years in the financial industry since back in 2010, started in actuarial science, and quickly we had the data rush where data is the new oil. And so I moved quite rapidly into predictive analytics, into working with visualizations, with programming languages like R and Python. And back in 2015, moved to New York when the new wave of blockchain was taking off. And a lot of data languages like Python and Julia started becoming more prevalent in analysis. From there, I got involved in a couple of ventures. One of them was the Big Three, a sports basketball venture with Jeff Quatnitz, Ice Cube, and Roger Mason. Grew out their tech stack and a lot of their resource management, and continued to get involved in technology, also from teaching and training. I was involved in the enterprise side at General Assembly. That included working with languages like SQL, data science, and AI topics, including natural language processing, and even rolling out their pilot for the blockchain curriculum based off IBM Hyperledger. I continue to get involved in some different topics with ICOs and AI advisory. And most recently have landed myself at Galvanize, where I continue to do a lot of strategic advisory, a lot of training and curriculum development, all around data science and AI. And also have an AI podcast called HumAIn, which is bridging the gap of humans, machines in the fourth industrial revolution, all about making sure humans are part of that conversation. So glad to dive into any of those. And yeah.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that's a pretty impressive resume you have. So the very first thing you said was actuarial. So that made me immediately think he must be a strong mathematician in addition to his teaching skills.
I love mathematics. You know, back in high school, I got involved in ARML and math competitions, both in the state of Florida and nationally. And I think whether you're working in blockchain technologies or data science and AI, it's all about the math behind the scenes.
Right. And then, data science, AI seems to be a computer science subset that really requires a lot of strong mathematicians. Wouldn't you agree?
It's interesting. I was at this AI conference in New York City just a couple of weeks back with a lot of thought leaders, including heads of divisions in machine learning and software engineering at Instagram, at Chartable, at Etsy, all these big media tech modern companies. And one of the big questions that came up from all these thought leaders and educational leaders in the audience, which was, do you need to be a software engineer to work in data science and AI? Is it all about the computer science background, or can you go in blind? Can you go through a 3-month boot camp? Can you pick up the data analysis and start hitting the ground running? And I think the big dichotomy in data science and AI is there are two types of data scientists. There are the ones who are traditional programmers who worked in software and architecture for a startup or a major organization, and are now doing a career pivot to be more focused on data as a result of APIs taking over the world. The second is the individual in college today who is no longer interested in just being a business analyst or working for the Big Four in accounting or consulting, but instead is saying, let me hop straight into code. And we're seeing now a lot of programs from Columbia University to UC Berkeley that are doing accelerated undergraduate degrees in data science and master's programs in AI as well.
Okay, so some people come at it from a programming software background, and then other people maybe not so much. They maybe were inclined to go towards accounting or something non-software, but then they go into data science and AI, you're saying.
That's right. And the challenge is for those who came from, whether it's the psychology and sociology, the accounting and business, or any non-applied technical field, there's a lot more of a steep learning curve to be ready to hit the ground running as a data scientist. I think one of the best things individuals can do who want to join companies and get into that field is to build capstone projects. In essence, have a portfolio of data sets you've worked with different technology tools, because then when you're in the room interviewing, you have a whole portfolio you can share with the hiring manager, and that increases the odds that you get to pass those bars to move forward in the interview process.
Okay, now I have a question. So you obviously have, as I said, an impressive resume. You've got strong math skills, strong software skills, and because of your podcast, you're obviously a good communicator. So you're basically like unstoppable. I mean, you've got it all. Okay. Now, I'm skeptical of when you said that a psychology major could jump in without software experience and contribute to AI. I would think that they would want, basically they need you're like the gold standard. Why would they want some bozo with the psychology? Well, maybe that, I don't want to be harsh if anybody's a psychology major, but why would they want somebody that didn't have the strong math background?
I think data and the application of data, in essence, AI is going to take over the world. And we're starting to see companies like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft coming out with auto machine learning solutions where you no longer need to know how to program, and you can take your data and run it into the software and see some results. Now, is that going to be really useful for someone like myself who's a data scientist, or someone who's a CTO of a company? Well, it may help with insights, but it wouldn't be the core part of your learning day by day. I think for those who are less technical, this is the sweet spot. I think we're going to be in a space in a few years where anyone from the liberal arts traditionally to small and medium-sized business owners are going to be able to work with data and AI at their company without hiring data scientists. Just like today, Google Analytics has become pervasive, and every owner who has a WordPress website or otherwise uses analysis to see how the customers are coming to their website. I think the same is going to happen with AI, and we're starting to see that trend. So when you have someone who's a psychology major, we're starting to see now different boot camps who are catering towards them. And we're starting to see programs at universities like Columbia University in the city of New York who are doing partnerships to ensure everyone has that data background. In fact, one of the most recent exits, one of the biggest educational exits of our time, was Trilogy Education. They just got acquired for about $750 million. And what they've done so successful is they host these data analysis programs for less technical folks at the university level. They partner with Columbia, partner with Florida Atlantic University, and so forth.
Okay, so would it be correct to then say that regular folks like us, like me, could use the cookie cutter, ready-made, user-friendly tools, but that what you do then would be push the state-of-the-art forward? You're kind of doing on the research side, the cutting edge?
Yeah, I definitely think you could be part of that conversation. And I think the future of a data scientist is going to become a super job. Super jobs were coined a few weeks back from Deloitte in their annual human capital management report that now individuals are going to do the jobs of what 2 and 3 people used to do. So the business analyst is no longer a big role at companies. Data scientists are working with the business problem and doing analysis that an analyst might do as well, and tying that in with the machine learning. But that doesn't mean that every company is going to have the budget to hire a 6-figure data scientist. So I think it's great that this technology is being democratized for all
Right.
companies. And just for a few dollars a month, you could hop on Amazon Web Service, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud Platform right now and literally take a data set and run machine learning in just a couple minutes for a few
Right.
dollars.
Interesting. Yeah, this reminds me, see, I'm old enough to remember. So desktop publishing, Apple pioneered that. So the Mac computer, they had great software for that. So before the Mac and that whole wave, you needed a professional person that typeset that made beautiful, right, newspaper front pages. And then now with software and these beautiful, word processing desktop publishing programs, anybody could do it. And so this kind of reminds me of that. So the tools are getting good enough that regular folks could do AI and machine learning work. Now, having said that, can you comment on how far along we are in that process where it is as clean and polished as, using Microsoft Office for desktop publishing?
Yeah, so first, from a news and media perspective, I don't think jobs ever go away. I really like how you were just describing it, Christian, that they keep evolving. So, for example, in the media space today, you'll see companies like Huge, which is a major agency in Brooklyn, New York, and you'll see a Facebook and Instagram. You have content strategists, and these are the individuals who work with calligraphy and typesetting and design and A/B testing and making sure that content is effectively engaged by an audience. So new jobs keep evolving, these super jobs, if you will. From the perspective of, where are we in AI today? Is it at a Microsoft Office level where everyone can just use it at their fingertips?
Exactly.
I don't think we're exactly there just yet, but I think from Google I/O and AWS Rethink 2018 and their 2019 one coming up in a few months, including their Mars conference coming up next week in Vegas, I think we're starting to see those tech tools come out. The nice thing about these tools is they're no longer required to be off-premise. What that simply means is you don't have to have them installed on your computer and have this bloatware that slows down your machine. It can all be done on the cloud. So I think that does simplify the process. However, I still think there's some hand-holding. You'll see a lot of tech companies now that have built themselves as the pride and joy off these platforms where they're doing sales engineering and they're building out infrastructure on Amazon, Google, or Microsoft's servers, and then making a more smooth dashboard and generous experience for anyone to apply the machine learning. You see platforms now like H2O.ai. They're one that does that. You have Rescale in San Francisco, which does that more on the enterprise side. You have Sisense, which is exploring that. Nime. There's a lot of companies now on the annual Gartner reports that are getting in that space of these auto ML solutions. And however, the truth is they're mostly at an enterprise level. They're not going to sit down with you and me because we're not going to bring in the big bucks for their budget. They're going to sit down with the Fortune 500s. But for it truly to be adopted, how did Python get adopted as the big programming language? It was democratized, free, open source. How is Solidity and all the C languages getting adopted in blockchain? Open sourced, right? Adopted by all. So the same thing's occurring.
Okay. Now, when you said auto ML, that of course means the genre of very user-friendly automated machine learning programs. Now, in my naive experience, I'm only familiar with Google. Google literally has a software package called AutoML, right? Is that one of the one of the big ones, the most prevalent people should pay attention to and look into?
Sure. So Google AutoML actually came off some technology from the Apache Foundation, who originally got into the AutoML game. And that's, again, Apache is known for open source, free, democratizing education and programming across the world. Amazon has a similar project. They call it SageMaker Neo. Microsoft has Cognitive Services. So they all give it a different name. But in essence, these programs do similar things. What each company does, however, is they create their own branch of the tech stack and they change it for their own version relevant to their tools, to their APIs, and their SDKs. So At the end of the day, the experience will be different on each platform, but it should be a similar cost and a similar user interface.
Okay. Now, we should probably now we've talked around the AI and machine learning about we've talked about a couple of issues and experiences related to that, but maybe we should define and give the basics of so like how would you define, why don't we spend some time defining what AI is and machine learning and data science? Can you do that?
For those who are brand new to these topics, AI is simply running an automated process at the level of human performance or better that either a human refuses to do or cannot do. So that's AI. And machine learning is improving that process over time through an iterative step-by-step cycle. It's as simple as that. And that can be in any programming language. A lot of individuals who are getting into programming think that Python is the magical pill where all AI is done. But Google this year announced their new version of TensorFlow integrated with Keras, and these are available in Python, in Swift, in Julia, in JavaScript, even Java and C++. They also now have a C# extension that partners with Unity and Unreal Engine, so you can do AI and virtual reality and games like Fortnite. So it's not only a one language shop. But getting into these, AI is the big subfield that encompasses machine learning, and it encompasses data science and all these data type fields that have become the new norm in analysis.
Okay. Now, is it correct to say that machine learning is a large part is about automating the creation of programs, having the software write the software?
So that's interesting. We have companies now looking at that. I had on the HumAIn podcast a few weeks ago, Travis Dirks. He's a PhD quant who has a startup called xlabs.ai out of Berkeley. And they're actually working on an initiative to have AIs that create and train new AIs. I think when you hear that, you think often of the movie Her and Ex Machina and all these doomsday scenarios of what is the direction of software engineering going. But we're quite far from seeing that as a reality. Those are very moonshots. Those are projects that you might not see hitting the industry for 10 to 15 plus years. A lot of human supervision is required, even for the state-of-the-art AI that's out in the industry today. For example, last summer, Dota 2, which is a very popular video game, was demonstrated against OpenAI to see if the humans could beat the machines. And these AI systems, all 5 of them, that's why it was called OpenAI 5, all the AI beat all the humans except the final most advanced team. However, what was not shared till later is that all the training that was going on behind the scenes, these hundreds of years of AI self-playing itself, trying to improve and understand the rules of the game. There are a lot of really weird mistakes that the AI made. In that game, in fact, one of the really cool things is to pick up an item called a mango. And this is a special item. It can help you to improve your performance. But usually a human would only pick up 2 or 3 of these from a local shop. The AI got fixated on this item and sometimes would pick up hundreds of them and spend all of its money, and then it would get caught in a scenario where it couldn't win the game. So I think the challenge is that self-learning, it is happening, but it is at a slower pace than we think. And one of the final points I'll add there is often technology in the short term, as humans, we usually overestimate how quickly it takes on. But in the long term, we underestimate the speed of technology.
Okay, so I appreciate that. So you made the distinction that currently programs, we can't completely automate the creation of new software, that humans are involved. So currently the state of the art is a hybrid where the human and the computer work together to do what maybe previously without machine learning, it was just the human typing in an editor, the complete program, right? Would you Would you agree with that?
Yes, and I would say that anything that's routine, anything that is repetitive is where the AI can come in to automate the process. For example, just 10 years ago, e-commerce websites and WordPress sites were being built by scratch. All the packages were being developed, and now you can simply import it using tools like Shopify, using Squarespace and other companies where it's done automatically. But that's all using scripting, which is happening behind the scenes. And those recommendations that you'll receive on these platforms are powered by AI. In essence, algorithms that tell you, given all of our previous data, given all these other companies and customers, this recommendation could be the best for you. Now, is it always the best? Not necessarily, but that's why we have human supervision to help refine these AI systems.
Okay. Now, for the people that are listening, the green light is probably the flag, the light bulb's going on if it hasn't already, that, oh my gosh, this is something that I better pay attention to. So if somebody wanted to get started in AI and machine learning, and maybe even they have an idea to develop a small product, what are some sources of information that you would recommend for complete beginners?
Yeah, there's many different routes you can go to start out. One place I like to share with people, and we can post this for those tuning in right now, we'll have it on the podcast link. I have a GitHub page with a lot of free resources for learning Python and data science and AI. So that's one great starting point. I'm all about democratizing education. So that's one place. If you have a budget, you could, of course, consider a lot of the boot camps. And depending on your time constraints, you could either attend one in person or go remote, since all these programs are moving online to democratize that learning as well. I think at the end of the day, it's not just about let me learn statistics or machine learning or AI, but you want to set out with a goal that you're going to achieve. And when you have that goal in mind, then you can pick the specific subfield that's interesting to you. Because in fact, in the space of AI, there are now thousands of different segments that can be done for analysis. And this field is constantly evolving each and every day.
So, okay, so you gave your, I'll certainly put the GitHub link in the metadata. And that had a lot of links for learning Python and a lot of the basics, because we don't know what backgrounds people are coming with. If somebody has, let me ask a related question. If somebody has some software background and they have a goal to make a neural network for a specific, let's say, computer vision project, you mentioned the auto ML packages. Let's go that route. Can you which one do you like the best? What is the most wonderful, user-friendly, awesome way to just automate the most that a developer could jump right in and get a product out as fast as possible?
Yeah, so there's a lot of tools you can work with to automate work in a work stream. There's, in fact, what's called the developer roadmap on GitHub. This is quite nice because the developer roadmap says if you're looking to work in the front end, if you're looking to work in the back end, or you're wanting to work in the architecture, all the different technologies are made aware for you. There's so many. In fact, you could be using over a dozen different softwares and programming languages just to make a web app work. However, what's nice is we go back to the Google, the Microsoft, and the Amazon solutions. They now all have different solutions that no longer require you to use all these. In fact, one that I like that Amazon launched at Rethink in 2018 is Lightsail. So Lightsail basically lets you create a website, basically like what Squarespace does, but without having to do any code. You literally press 3 buttons and you have a WordPress site up and running. And then before you know it, you can start selling your product or even talking about your new blog.
Okay. Now, the three, the Microsoft, Amazon, Google products, those are for automating a lot of the work of building a neural network as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So AutoML, this solution of automated machine learning, basically includes all of the previous algorithms that were used in the past 30 years and all the state-of-the-art algorithms today. State-of-the-art has been known as neural networks. This technology, it's been around actually for several decades, but in 2012, there were some breakthroughs with big data from Google. And in 2015, the neural networks started to get processed a lot faster because of stronger computer networks and faster processing centers in computers. So now AutoML and these solutions actually let you train neural networks on your data sets. But I think one of the catch-alls that people need to be aware of is that just because you have a neural network doesn't mean it's state of the art. In fact, if you had 1 billion data points, there is a chance that linear regression could outperform a neural network. There's a chance that K nearest neighbors, which is the recommendation engine often used by companies such as Yelp and Spotify on recommending new food and music, could also outperform a neural network. So another resource that I really like, especially when I'm working with students on their capstone projects, it just came online in the past year and a half. So research is one of my fields that I really enjoy, and it's evolving so fast. There's almost 2 million papers on archive, all of these researches in all the fields. And there's a new site called Papers with Code that came out. It basically takes the top 10,000 or so of these papers with data sets and with real code and lets you implement whatever subfield of AI that is interesting to you. So if you're interested in computer vision, natural language processing, speech recognition, or even doing time series analysis, that's now possible. However, these are all going with the code. So you'll have to look at more than an AutoML solution.
Okay. Now that's interesting. So you said deep learning may not always be the best choice, right? The linear regression, K nearest neighbors. I'm aware of a little bit of those. Those are other machine learning techniques, right? But couldn't, if that was the case, that maybe linear regression or some other technique, simpler technique was better, couldn't the AutoML detect that and tell you? So that, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so there's a lot of new algorithms coming out, but at the end of the day, what you're seeing with Google, Microsoft, and Amazon is they have teams of engineers that are having to go through and implement these new algorithms. They have full-time data scientists who are going to sites like Papers with Code, going to the leading AI conferences like NIPS, and they're looking through these algorithms, and if the results improve on what is already state of the art, then you're seeing those appear in the releases. That's why right now about every 6 months, new releases of these software are coming out for these platforms.
Okay. All right. Now, not to put you on the spot, but can you say something about comparing these big three that apparently are very nice, user-friendly packages that automate a lot of the machine learning work with Amazon, Microsoft, Google? Which one of those three, if you had to rank them, which one do you like the best overall?
Well, if I had to rank them from market share, Amazon's currently leading the race with Microsoft in second and Google in third. The one that's exciting me a lot right now is Microsoft because their CEO has decided to go all in on software and to make it accessible. So I like a lot of new solutions coming out, and they just held their Build conference a couple of weeks ago. And what was really neat when they had it in Seattle is conversational systems are all the rage in 2019. So it's no longer just about chatbots that you can type in text on your phone and your computer, but conversational systems for speech to text and speech to text to speech between languages. We're starting to see breakthroughs now that if you speak English and you're traveling overseas to Italy and someone speaks Italian, you can almost instantaneously live with a very high accuracy have a conversation with that person. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's super cool. So I think Microsoft's definitely taking a good focus to be number one in that space. Google's not stepping out without a fight as well. Their cloud platform is continuing to grow. I think there's room for multiple entrants. I think especially because in 2019, less than 38% of Fortune 500 companies are even on the cloud today. So, they're going to diversify. Several of our clients that I've worked with are even on multiple of these providers. So they'll have some things on premise, which might be, say, on Google, and then they'll have one on Amazon, and then they'll have some local machines, maybe their mainframes that they had from a few years ago, just to make sure they have all the security in place to keep their data safe.
Okay, so now, see, that's interesting. You surprised me because you said Amazon, in terms of market share, is the most successful. See, I just naively thought, okay, everybody... It's widely known Google has, a ton of smart people and they've invested and committed to AI. So I just assumed Google was dominating the field.
Another interesting thing with Amazon Web Services is everyone thinks, wow, there's all these AI and machine learning products. There must be so much revenue coming towards Amazon for this. And I think at Rethink last year, they announced their numbers. They said less than 1% of the total revenue on AWS was a result of AI and ML solutions. Most of it was architecture and infrastructure and running applications and running databases and making sure servers stay online. So I think it's still the early days for AI and ML production.
Okay. Now, for people that are interested in maybe getting into this field and contributing something, what are some business opportunities, kind of some needs that the marketplace has that people might want to be thinking about?
I think the two biggest subfields in AI that we've seen a lot of growth with business opportunities because of the state-of-the-art algorithms is both computer vision and natural language processing. So computer vision is, think of your smartphone and how many of the new ones today from Google and Apple and all the other companies, you can unlock your phone. You can do this facial recognition. That's all powered by computer vision. And if you want to take a picture of images, if you want to stream videos, if you want to work with anything that has context in the real world, both in 2-dimension, 3-dimension, or more, this requires computer vision to understand the context of the environment. And I think every business will be able to take that on in the next few years. We're seeing self-driving cars, which are still very new in the industry, but they're all powered by computer vision. Now, the other subfield I mentioned, natural language processing, is a lot of the early work that was done by Nuance and Dragon and recently Siri, and now all these other conversational systems like Alexa with Amazon and OK Google and Apple HomePod and Cortana by Microsoft and Bixby by Samsung. So we see a lot of these conversational voice assistants are out there, but now it's being able to use them with only a few seconds, or maybe even less than that, 100 milliseconds of latency to see the results. I think we have an aging population globally where baby boomers are retiring and a lot of older individuals are going to need services, and voice is going to power a lot of that. I think the combination of voice and video together is a very stellar combination to have a business that can succeed, whether that is delivering services or anticipating needs before they occur anywhere. These are the two subfields that you should be looking at to implement solutions.
Oh no, that's great. Yeah, and that kind of that confirms a suspicion that I had that computer vision seemed to be like they were doing really well in that area, and so that there's lots of opportunities over the next couple of years to then build that out and apply that to more and more sectors of the economy. And then I didn't know that natural language processing was also that strong. So that's good. So computer vision and then natural language processing are two big practical areas that you can do. You can make interesting products, useful products now for the world.
That's right. And there's always the other side of the coin where people think, oh no, there could be something dangerous going on here. Can you then self-generate text to complete my essays so I don't have to work on them in school? Or can I create images that make it look like I was at the White House with Barack Obama? And I tell people who think about these deep fakes and doctoring all this information. Well, we've had Photoshop for many years, right? One of my favorite jokes is back when I was in middle school, I joked with a few of my friends that I would run for president. So we took the sixth grader version of me and put it in front of a White House podium and moved George W. Bush. And there was David Yakobovitch in the Oval Office. And we're starting to see that more today. But I think generally there will be technology coming out to protect our data and ensure that what you're seeing is authenticated and real. More of those security type solutions will come in the next couple of years, predominantly because of what's been going on in Baltimore. It's even more important. The NSA lost control of one of their tools in 2017, known as Eternal Blue, and that's resulted in the Baltimore government being down for, I think now almost 3 weeks, which in 2019 is pretty crazy to think about that. I know back in Japan with a Sony corporation a couple of years ago, their systems were down up to 3 months because of some compromised data. And so I think one of the most important things I let individuals know, if you're launching ventures and you're super excited on AI machine learning, make sure you protect your data. Make sure you put in security protocols and make sure that you're constantly monitoring so that you are being aware of what threats exist out there, because when a threat exists, it doesn't mean that you're secure from it. Your operating system, whether it's Apple, Linux, or Microsoft, sure, they're going to have patches and updates, but if you don't install those patches and you're constantly installing new software, you never know what threats exist out there.
Right. Okay. Well, just for fun, okay, yeah, you addressed the concern about these deep fakes, which is something that I've thought about. And you said there's people working on how to thwart those issues. What the other, of course, thing that people worry about with AI and machine learning is somebody's going to make a rogue AI that's going to take over the world. Think about like the Terminator story. I'm personally skeptical of that. I don't sit up at nights worrying about that. But do you want to say anything about that just for fun? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, right now, I don't see any AI taking over the world. I would say, of course, there is this big dilemma between the US and China on AI technology and investment in this space. There's also great companies working in AI in Europe and in other Asian countries in South America. But I think we're many years away from something like that. I think there's a bigger risk of like a nuclear bomb going off and destroying the world because of some security threat enabled by AI. I hope that's not what will happen. I'm generally that eternal optimist who sprinkles in realism here and there that, yes, let's go for those moonshot projects and let's build technology that can change and transform our world. I'm all about if you can build experiences that augment what humans already do today, but reduce the need for redundancy, reduce the need for repetitive tasks, we get to free up our creative mind and we get to work on projects that are more interesting. There's a new startup in New York called Runway ML. I met with the founder a few weeks ago, and it was really great because they are from NYU. They're PhD researchers, and they built a software that takes all these AI algorithms, but the generative ones that can transform images, and they basically built a software that's drag and drop. So if you want to take an image from Game of Thrones of the fall when there's a tree just out there, one of the big ones in the scenes, and then throw that image into the system and suddenly snow is there and winter is coming. You could do that with these AI algorithms now, but they're removing the barriers to entry, which is coding. Personally, I think everyone should learn to code. It's going to help as we're moving into a more digital society.
Right. Now, okay, so you've given a great background introduction to the background of AI and machine learning, and you've given a lot of interesting anecdotes. Now, since this is a blockchain-focused podcast, why don't we switch gears And can you say something about the marriage of AI, machine learning, and blockchain, how they could help each other? Be useful, Kevin.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see a lot of new products coming out of blockchain projects that have been part of Consensus and Ethereum and other tools that have been incubating for the past couple of years. One that I really like is known as Query. They're based in Brooklyn. And what they do is they're building GitHub, but they're building it on the blockchain. So it's super cool. And that's ultimately going to be powered around data sets. And it's going to be powered around AI in the future. The exciting thing about blockchain is your data is secure. So I'm really interested in the technology and how it can be hacker proof. That's what excites me most, is that you're going to be able to have data that you can trust and know is there even 5 or 10 years down the road, as systems do get compromised by software like Eternal Blue. You know, it's taken down all the city of Baltimore. They're running on software that's been from the 90s. They're using personal Gmail accounts. We have no way to know if these representatives and bills are being authenticated or not. If a blockchain ledger is there and cannot be reversed, that's really exciting. And then that's important for AI and machine learning, because then you decrease the risk that if someone hacks the data, they can hack the algorithm. So I think we're going to start seeing startups that are matching the two together, and Query is one of those out of Brooklyn. That's exciting.
Okay, yeah. So AI obviously works with lots of data, and so any place you're saying where we want to lock it down, we want to make sure that the data hasn't been modified, tampered with, then they could use blockchains for that.
Yeah, and I think it's all about thinking, what is the big goal that you're trying to achieve? A lot of people in the blockchain space have gravitated towards it because of anonymity and because of being able to, run the type of efforts that you'd like without having the risk that previously existed in the world. You know, imagine if Julian Assange was able to do everything that he had done before, but on the blockchain. Well, if that was possible, then he wouldn't have been arrested this past week for extradition, right? There'd be nothing that would have indicted him because, many people in the blockchain community do consider him one of those thought leaders who is working to decentralize the world. So you could think about the future of whistleblowers for companies. They no longer have to risk putting their identity there, and then that could be anonymous. But I think, again, moving into the blockchain space, especially with data, if we're going to look at the anonymous piece, anonymous is great while you're anonymous, but once your identity is discovered, you can never go back. So it depends which features of blockchain are most interesting for your venture. And then this is the new business paradigm that you're going to integrate them with potentially machine learning to learn on that data, and AI if you're looking to work with images or text to make a better experience for your end user. Okay.
Now, so for the last part, why don't I ask you, Kate, about the near future? So AI and machine learning industry is obviously evolving very quickly. But do you want to say some things about what we could expect maybe in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Sure. So I'd love to look more at the short term because, 20 years down the road, it's amazing to even think where we'll be at.
Right.
For example, just 2 years ago, Mr. Zimmer from Lyft said, I think we're going to see self-driving cars on the road by 2025. Mm-hmm. And now we're in late 2019, and these cars are already starting to move onto the road. We're starting to see companies like Nuro in San Francisco deliver groceries with self-driving. We're starting to see Uber and Waymo piloting self-driving cars in Philadelphia and Arizona, in the Phoenix area. So technology does move a lot faster than we expect in the long term. But I think in the short term, if we're going to look at trends with AI and machine learning, I think one of the biggest ones that we do need to keep on our horizon is about the authenticity of data. I think deep fakes are going to present a lot of issues. I think products are going to be out there to authenticate communications, but I think that's something that people want to be aware of. I also think seamless experiences on a more positive note is something we're going to see more in the next couple of years. So we're going to be working with chatbots on websites, buying products from Nike or searching for your new clothing at H&M, and you won't even be able to tell that your customer support is not a human. They're all going to be AI systems, which are going to pass this Turing test that humans are going to say, oh, I'm just chatting with another human customer service. But whether it's with your telecommunication, like Sprint, AT&T, or you're even looking at advisors in the financial space, or making sure you check into your airline, I think it's all going to be moving to autonomous systems, but it's going to still be augmented by humans. We're always going to have a human supervisor. They're going to be making sure communication and conversations are running smoothly, and they'll be there to override these AI systems. As long as you put those security protocols in place, I think that's going to be good. And then we'll be freeing up our time to work on more exciting projects like, Elon Musk is working on right now, deploying satellites in space that integrate all across the world, even in rural regions. So no longer will valuable land just be in New York City, but you can go into the Midwest and Minnesota and have valuable land as well, right? With a gigabyte internet speed. Moving to Mars, right? With Blue Origin and SpaceX as well. Like those are big problems that I think we can solve. And, when people say, I hope we can solve it in our lifetime, those are things like, it's really tough for me to say, is that going to be here in 5, 10, 20 years? But whatever timeline I would put, I'm sure it's going to be quicker. We look at those time capsules back from the 1950s where people predicted internet and people predicted, we're going to use these screens that we're going to be glued to and they're going to control our communications. I think we're generally right on predictions. It's just the timeline that's usually quite off. However, I'm quite optimistic that AI machine learning is going to become more mainstream. And I think it's going to be less scary than people think, especially as it augments our human experience each and every day.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you said something that I wasn't expecting, or I wouldn't have guessed that these chat bots, you could talk to an AI program and it would be that smooth that it could pass a Turing test. So that's interesting. We'll just have to see if that comes to pass. But that was an interesting prediction.
That's right. And some of them are, being implemented right now, being tested out. Some of them are doing good. But, when you're on your customer service sites, I say next time, just try to think if you're talking to a human or not, at least from a texting perspective on those chatbots. I think we'll see, though, in the next couple of years, also they'll be voice related because we're getting really good at human voice parody. There was some research that came out just a couple of weeks ago that now, given all of Joe Rogan, right, one of these famous podcasters who started with NBC and Fear Factor, his voice, he has thousands and thousands of hours all available online. And so these researchers took all the audio, put it into a system, and basically reproduced his voice with probably 98% accuracy.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, though, he had a lot of training data because he's been on TV shows and podcasts and movies and all that. But still, that brings up the scary thought that what if I wanted to create a commercial to say, and I'm Joe Rogan and I support this movement, right? It gets a little scary quite quickly. So I try not to have my mind head in that direction.
Right. You're going to have call centers where you think it sounds like you're talking to Donald Trump or any other celebrity that you have a lot of voice data to analyze.
Yeah, it's incredible where we're moving with the technology. And really, it's all about the cost of chips. Chips have gone down so much in cost, some even 1,000-fold just in the last 10 years. And because of that, we're seeing the technology occurring today in the United States, in China. And I think we're going to see it soon happening around the world. Africa passed their own version of a block, similar to the European Union, just this past week. So I think we're going to see a lot of countries start to band together with technology and trading packs. And overall, it's going to be a human-led world, but empowered by machines. For the first time today, one sad statistic that came out was that global poverty, the rate at which we're decreasing it, is actually decreasing. For the first time in 20 years, it's slowing down. And that's partially as a result of autonomous systems. So it's important that when we're implementing AI systems, we're thinking about the long run. How do we empower more humans to have jobs, to work together, and be a part of the process? One way we're doing that, I had last week on the HumAIn podcast, I had Mark Sears from Cloud Factory. He's actually coming out in a few weeks on the podcast. So we were just talking about it, about how he has these individuals in Nepal and Kenya, and they're working on being a part of the AI solutions by helping training these AI systems. So I definitely think humans are part of that conversation, and they're going to continue to do that. So look forward to those episodes and continue to be part of just having this dialogue.
No, yeah. You brought up a concern that a lot of people have that AI is going to, eliminate jobs. I would just add the thought that technology has been improving for hundreds of years, and people have had this concern for hundreds of years, and the evidence is that we always get new and different, often better jobs. And so history would suggest that AI is going to be the same thing. There's going to be new jobs because people's demands and expectations go up when their former needs are met by products. And so that would be one point of potential optimism to think about that. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And, I every single week when I have my podcast coming out on HumAIn, that's with an AI in the middle, we talk with thought leaders about how it's building more ethical solutions. It's allowing solutions that empower humans and ultimately create better products. In fact, I had today, on May 28th, I had my most recent episode released with the former president of Epic Games. He worked in Fortnite and Gears of Wars, and we talked all about what his team used to do in the Unity engine and the Unreal engine that would take hundreds of engineers can now be done just with 2 to 5 people because technology continues to evolve. But as a result of that evolution, we now have newer virtual reality technologies, augmented reality, and engineers that are doing different tasks that previously were not possible because we were stuck on a lot of routine tasks in design. So I'm very much looking forward to additional advances in AI.
Right. Good.
Pleasure being here on the show.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing. Since you talked about the future and other countries, what about some people are concerned about China taking the lead in AI versus the free world, the US. Do you have any thoughts on that? Is that something to be concerned about?
I think it's still early to tell who's going to be the global leader in AI. I definitely would say the US and China are the leading countries there with a lot of the leading companies. I think Canada, I think France, I think there's a few other countries that are doing a lot in that space as well. I hope for the future that we're going to be collaborating together. And I think that would be the most optimum structure to see evolution in technology. Will China overall take the U.S.? Economically speaking, that could happen in the next, 5 to 15 years. We have to see what that looks like as well for technology. What I will say is that Stanford came out with their human-centered AI report just in April 2019, and it showed that there's actually 4 times as many AI startups in the United States than China. So I think some of the China dialogue that we're having in the US could be a little bit of overhype, but long-term, they're definitely a major player that we're going to be working with collaboratively.
Okay. Well, wow. Okay. I think we've covered a lot of good ground on this show. And so I just want to thank you, David, for speaking with me, for enlightening us. You're obviously very articulate and knowledgeable. So yes, thank you for all you do and for enlightening us.
Thanks so much, Christian. Pleasure being on the show.
All right. So good luck with your podcast, and maybe we'll have you back on a future show.
Thanks so much. Absolutely. Really appreciate you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.